Hey, welcome back to the channel. So inspired by the free Celt sprue on Wargames Illustrated, I went back and started doing some stuff with my existing Hail Caesar forces. And I'm starting to do something a bit radical. As you can see, here's a big block of Celts I already had. So a couple of things I'm doing is mounting my models on bigger bases. So these are 60 by 30 and I'm putting 3 strips on. Now the thing about Hail Caesar, and actually any of the Warlord Black Powder games, is you can pretty much use any size base you want to represent a unit. So some of the games where formation matters, you might need to think about that. But Hail Caesar, basically, I could use that as a unit, or I could put 2 of them together as a unit, or I could use all 6 as a unit. The other thing I came to the conclusion with for my epic battles was I was overcomplicating the bases, and I was getting the models, painting them up, putting sand on the base, painting the sand, 2, 3 dry brushes, and then putting a bit of flock on. That's what I do for my 28mm models. It looks really good. But what I've done is I've got some sand. This is finest Wimsbury beach sand, and I've mixed some flock through it, and I'm just gluing it to the bases as a one-stop solution, nice and quick. Takes a pain out of basin. There's nothing worse than painting an army and then coming back and having to do all the bases. So let's talk a bit about the Celts, and I'll talk about what else I've been doing with Hail Caesar. So these are Kelt Infantry. So these were the existing Celts or Gauls of the wargame, of the starter boxes, the allies and the Carthaginian boxes. So all I've done is picked some primary colours and green. So red, yellow, blue, green. And when I'm painting, I'm going along and I'm daubing them half shields, daubing bits here. Then I've gone back, put my flesh tones in, a few greys, primary colours again on the back, paint the hair, bit of metal, throwing a shade over. Now I used to use Agrax Earth Shade, but I've been using Zalgor Ridge Shade, which works really well in pretty much all colours. And then I've gone back and just added a few dots and interesting patterns to the Celts. Now the Celts Gauls weren't an organised nation like Rome or Carthage. So you had tribal chieftains and they would bring out their men. So the Gauls, when they went to war, would be having the best, the finest equipment, colours. So that's why I wanted quite a nice, bright Gallic horde. With the skirmishers, similar sort of idea, except I've kept it a bit more with the browns and greys. And my rationale for that is these tended to be sort of younger people in the tribe. So they wouldn't have had access maybe to as much finery as the main troops. And again, some Gallic cavalry. So there's a really good article in the Wargames Illustrated about the Gauls. So Gaul, basically what is France now with some extra bits. Tribes, and they would often fight Rome. They've invaded Rome a few times, famously thwarted by some geese when they were attacking Rome. They fought against the Carthaginians when they were crossing the Alps and allied with the Carthaginians after Carthage beat them into submission. And the appeal for allying with the Carthage was the ability to take plunder from northern Italy. Now actually the Gauls, there was Cisalpine and Transalpine Gauls. So Cisalpine I think is on the Italian side of the Alps and Transalpine was the other side. Now I've been delighted with the new sprues from Wargames Illustrated, well, Warlord Games on Wargames Illustrated. So what it's given is a couple of the naked Gaesti Gauls and 3 more stands of Gaulish infantry. Now it kind of gives some command stands as well. So with a Carinx and with a bow standard. Caranx is a fantastic instrument. If you've not heard one played, hunt it down on YouTube. There's loads of really good videos of them getting played. Actually, where I live, there's a lot of Bronze Age sort of cairns, and I feel like getting crazy and buying a Caranx and going up and playing it over the Bronze Age cairns. The thing you've got some more heavy cavalry, and you've got some light cavalry. You've got more skirmishers as well. I'm not really showing off the sprues here, but javelin men and bows. You've got a couple of command as well. You've got individual bow standard, Caranx blower. There's a chieftain as well. And the other addition is a chariot. Now, I've not built up. I've got a couple of these sprues coming. Now, chariots. So chariots kind of phased out of Gaulish culture and horses took over premier kind of role on the battlefield. There were still occasionally chariots in Gaul, but actually chariot culture lived on in ancient Britain with the Celts. When I did my 6mm armies, I kind of did a Gaulish army, and then I did sort of a chariot contingent for the ancient British. A lot of historical facts thrown around about the chariots, whether they were sort of rode into battle and into formations like scythe chariots, or whether they were battle taxis, or whether they were skirmishing platforms. I tend to focus more on the fact there were probably more skirmishing platforms and battle taxis. But the thing about weapons in war is however they work at the time is the way they'll get used. Just because there's a fixed paradigm for how a thing should be used, if somebody comes up with a more effective way to use it, or the situation means that it gets used a different way, then it will get used a different way. Certainly when I'll be modelling my chariots, I always model a few skirmishers kind of around the chariots, like they've jumped off and they're throwing javelins. Now this is the rest of my Hail Caesar that I've painted. Now these have been shown off in previous videos, but I think the 60 by 30mm bases look really good. The other thing I'm going to be using these for is different rule sets. So obviously Hail Caesar's a rule set, DBA, and I know there's slightly different base depths and stuff, but actually consistent base size works for me. And DBA, in case you don't know, is quite a fast play, ancient set of rules where an army is 12 elements strong, and they're fixed. And I think that would be a good way to get maybe, I'm almost finished a Gaulish contingent, and it certainly will be finished once I've painted up my free sprues from War Games Illustrated. Some of the guys in the club are giving me the sprues. And I've got a Roman division as well, so that will flesh out the Roman army. I've also finished some Carthaginians, so spearmen and cavalry. I've left shields there. I will put transfers on those shields, but I did some sort of hand-painted Carthaginian symbols there. And again, you've seen it before as well, but there's the Iberians up on the 30mm bases. I just think that's quite a nice block of troops if you're going to use a different rule set. Or if you were going to use Hail Caesar and you were wanting to represent columns and lines, just use 2 bases for a unit. So deployed column. I've also got the Hannibal rules from Little Wars TV. I know they use square bases, but they shouldn't be too hard an adaptation. Just use the bases like this. So you really like the Hannibal rules. I used to play a set of rules called Fantasy Rules by Chipco Games, which the Hannibal rules are based on. Lovely set of rules, really good for the imagination. So as you see here, the grass and sand mix, I think, work really well, especially for sort of a Mediterranean setting. Might play around with it for different periods, different battle zones. So, for example, Napoleonics in Waterloo maybe add some darker grass. Now the other thing that you'll notice these guys aren't finished, because what I'm doing is the bigger base size allows me to throw a few more skirmishers on the base, and I think that really fills out the base and adds to the effect. So I've got bowmen, Numidians, some more Kelt Gaul javelin men. So by the time I've got about 8 models on, that looks quite like a nice formation, especially when you're got next to them. So there we are. That's an update on my Hail Caesar force at the moment. Once I've got all my Wargames Illustrated sprues together from the guys at the club, I will probably finish off the Romans and Gauls / Celts, ancient Britons, for that. But actually, I think I've got the 28mm Napoleonic bug. You might have seen in another video with talking about doing a Leipzig event. Now I've already got my forces painted for that. I've got a French division and a Polish division I can use for Leipzig. But one of my great loves is the Peninsular War. So expect some content on 28mm Napoleonics coming up, and especially on armies for the Peninsular War. But anyway, that's enough of me chatting about my Hail Caesar Epic Collection. I look forward to chatting to you in another video. And yeah, I hope you're having a great time with the hobby at the moment. I know I always have 2 weeks off at the start of May, and that's allowed me to get my mojo back up and running. So I expect more content soon, and I'll see you in another video. That's bye for now. Goodbye.